Gas, snacks, tolls? This trip is draining my wallet.
Yeah, but we'll be with family.
You're in a good mood. What's your deal?
What's my deal? I saved at Metro with no activation fees, and I got one line to 5G for just $25 per month, kept the phone I love, and a 5-year price guarantee on my talk, text, and data.
Detour to Metro.
Get that more for your money feeling. Only at Metro by T-Mobile.
Just bring your number. $30 first month and $25 after with autopay. Not available if with Metro or T-Mobile in the past 180 days.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
And away we go, episode 1244 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. I, on this podcast in recent months, have said that the Washington Commanders need to replenish their diminished NFL draft capital. Well, here's one way in which they could do that. We on Wednesday morning had reports that Commanders run game coordinator / running backs coach Anthony Lynn was to interview for the Buffalo Bills head coaching vacancy. If the Bills hire Lynn as head coach, the Commanders get 2 third-round compensatory draft picks, one in the 2026 NFL Draft and one in the 2027 NFL Draft. This per NFL rules, designed to encourage the development of minority coaches, even though Anthony Lynn already has been an NFL head coach. Lynn, because he has been on the Commanders coaching staff for at least 2 seasons, would garner the team 2 third-round compensatory draft picks if he got hired as Bills head coach. Now, I don't know how likely it is that the Bills will hire Lynn as head coach, but them hiring him would aid the Commanders' quest to replenish their diminished draft capital. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Some more Commanders-related items on Wednesday from the 2026 NFL coaching cycle, these having to do with their search for a defensive coordinator. The dream is no more. The possibility of the dream get of Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores is no more. The Vikings on Wednesday evening announced having signed Flores to a contract extension. So the talk of the Commanders potentially getting Flores, unfortunately, is done. Also, reports on Wednesday night that the Commanders were to interview Chicago Bears defensive backs coach and defensive passing game coordinator Al Harris for the Commanders defensive coordinator vacancy. Harris worked with Commanders head coach Dan Quinn during Quinn's time as Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. So your list of those who the Commanders reportedly have interviewed or will interview for their defensive coordinator vacancy: Las Vegas Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, Kansas City Chiefs defensive line coach Joe Cullen, Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, Seattle Seahawks defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach Carl Scott, Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, though we now cross him off the list. Fired Arizona Cardinals head coach and former Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. And now Chicago Bears defensive backs coach and defensive passing game coordinator Al Harris. What about fired Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris, who we have anticipated as being a candidate for the Commanders defensive coordinator vacancy? Well, ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, he on Wednesday morning in a post on X reported, quote, Raheem Morris is waiting out head coaching chances. He's involved in Arizona's search, but is expected to have multiple defensive coordinator looks should he not get a head job, per sources. Morris has close ties to Kyle Shanahan, parentheses, San Francisco, Matt LaFleur, parentheses, Green Bay, and Dan Quinn, parentheses, Washington, end quote. We on Tuesday's show, episode 1242, got good perspective on Raheem Morris from longtime Falcons insider D. Orlando Ledbetter of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Next segment, a conversation with Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack on why the team parted with offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury and what the team is looking for from its new offensive coordinator, David Blough. A terrific insight from Ben on a situation that seemingly has become clear, especially with the team per reports on Monday afternoon promoting assistant offensive line coach Darnell Stapleton to offensive line coach and promoting offensive quality control coach Shane Tobe to assistant offensive line coach. Also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals and college basketball. The Caps, they are reeling. They now are just 7-12-4 over their last 23 games, a 4-3 loss at the NHL worst Vancouver Canucks late night on Wednesday night. The Canucks snapped an 11-game losing streak. The Caps blew a 2-0 first period lead, and they lost despite getting back winger Tom Wilson from an 8-game absence caused by a lower body injury. We in college basketball on Wednesday night had road games for Maryland, Georgetown, and Virginia Tech. The Terrapins and Hoyas lost, but the Hokies won. Maryland in the 2025-2026 regular season fell to 1-7 in the Big Ten with an 89-70 loss at number 11 Illinois. Georgetown in this regular season fell to 1-7 in the Big East, 66-51 loss at Villanova. But Virginia Tech in this regular season improved to 4-3 in the ACC with a 76-74 win at Syracuse. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from DJ on Commanders General Manager Adam Peters. Writes DJ, Hi Al, I am terrible at remembering names and such, but you recently had a guest discussing how firing Dan Quinn would be like revisiting the Snyder era. My only point on that is that while Snyder was quick to change coaches, he was super loyal to his executives regardless of title. Allen and Serrato both had very long leashes. The title of GM might not have been there, but those guys were responsible for the roster. I believe that eventually it'll come out how Adam Peters completely botched the 2024 coaching search. Maybe deliberately, maybe inadvertently, he sent a message to potential coaches, and as a result, we had to settle for Dan Quinn. I sent an email at the start of the 2024 season saying how I didn't understand the blind support for Peters, and 2 seasons in, I still don't understand. This team is not better in any area than the team was prior to Quinn and Peters. You can say quarterback, but history has taught me that I need to see that for more than 1 year before I believe. Finally, I will say that this is the most discouraging season in my fandom. At least in previous seasons, I could always blame Snyder. Now, the only thing I have to blame is the football people in charge. And to top this all off, we might as well toss out the name. We have quite possibly the worst name in sports. Where is the hope? Thank you for the email, DJ. Wow. All right, a lot to get to with that email. The recent guest to whom DJ referred is Scott Jackson, co-host of the official Commanders postgame show on the Washington Commanders radio network. He joined me on episode 1227, on which we discussed whether the team should/would fire Dan Quinn. Regarding Adam Peters potentially having botched the head coaching search that resulted in the team hiring Quinn as head coach in February 2024. So the fact that the Commanders made the NFC Championship game in Quinn's first season as the team's head coach means that Peters did not botch the search. Botch would mean that Peters whiffed. This was not a whiff. However, did Peters ultimately hire the right guy? Did Peters ultimately hire the best guy? And it is fair to wonder those things, especially with the success of Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk on February 2nd, 2024, reported that the Commanders had offered their head coaching job to Macdonald. Quote, per a league source, new Seahawks coach Mike Macdonald also had an offer from the Commanders. It was extended after Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson removed his name from consideration for the job, end quote. Also, Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4, he on episode 755 of this podcast said that he had heard something similar to what Mike Florio reported, and Commanders insider Ben Standig, then with The Athletic, and NFL insider Diana Rossini of The Athletic, they co-authored a piece that came out on February 5th, 2024. The headline of the piece was, quote, how the Commanders landed on Dan Quinn amid twists, turns, and outrageous actions, end quote. The piece included this on the Commanders, Macdonald and Ben Johnson, quote, once Johnson was out of the running, the Commanders thought they were going to get Macdonald until the Seahawks swooped in with more money. League sources told The Athletic, end quote. So if you go off all of that, the Commanders wanted Mike Macdonald over Dan Quinn, but of course did not get Macdonald, and he is killing it as Seahawks head coach. Mike Macdonald over 2 regular seasons as Seahawks head coach is 24-10. Now, when it comes to DJ calling Washington's 2025 season the most discouraging season of his fandom, look, I'm not here to tell any fan of the team how to feel. You feel however you feel. But first of all, the difference in ownership alone is a reason not to be discouraged, at least to me. I mean, lasting success with Dan Snyder as owner of the team never happened. Lasting success with the Josh Harris group owning the team is at the very least possible. But also, I believe that the number one reason by far for the Commanders' disappointing 2025 season was injury. It is almost impossible for the team next season to be as injured as the team was this season. The expectation of better injury luck next season is reason to be encouraged. Not to say that there aren't reasons to be discouraged. There are. But if you're looking for reasons for optimism, it would be really hard for the Commanders in the 2026 season to be as injured as they were in the 2025 season, and the team just being healthier, especially at quarterback, is reason for optimism. The QB1, Jaden Daniels, played in just 7 of the team's 17 games in the 2025 regular season, and he got injured in 4 of the 7 games. Him being that hindered by injury next season is unlikely, even if you have questions about his durability. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Well, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Make Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best the next day. Enjoy drinks with friends. Enjoy drinks while watching the big game, and don't sacrifice your productivity for the next day. Start your night with Z-Biotics pre-alcohol and wake up ready to show up strong at work, clear-headed, focused, and back to business. Go to zbiotics.com/Galdi and you'll get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code Galdi at checkout. Plus, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Also, subscriptions are available for maximum consistency. That's zbiotics.com/Galdi. Use the promo code Galdi at checkout for 15% off.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, Thank you. There still is a lot to be determined with the Washington Commanders' defensive coaching staff, given the defensive coordinator vacancy, but the team's offensive coaching staff may well be set. We don't know for sure, but each known vacancy has been filled. The team on January 6th parted with offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. The team on January 10th announced having promoted assistant quarterbacks coach David Blough to offensive coordinator. We on January 14th had reports that the Commanders were hiring Atlanta Falcons quarterbacks coach DJ Williams as Commanders quarterbacks coach. We last Friday, January 16th, had reports that the Commanders were hiring Danny Etling as their assistant quarterbacks coach. And we this past Monday afternoon, January 19th, had reports that the team is promoting assistant offensive line coach Darnell Stapleton to offensive line coach and is promoting offensive quality control coach Shane Tobe to assistant offensive line coach. We're now 2.5 weeks removed from the Commanders parting with Kliff Kingsbury, a development that was not at all anticipated up until 3 days before it happened. Do we now have a good understanding of what happened here? It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. You could read his work at lastmanstanding.substack.com. He also is the host of the Last Man Standing podcast. You can follow Ben on X at Ben Standig, and Ben is joining us for the second of two conversations on the podcast this week. Ben was with us on Monday's show, episode 1241, for a deep dive on the Commanders' search for a defensive coordinator and more. Ben, good to talk to you. You were at the forefront of the reporting on the Commanders potentially parting with Kliff Kingsbury, and what you had came out before they parted with him. You had a piece that came out on January 4th, 2 days before the team parted with Kingsbury, wrote that on January 2nd, quote, a high-ranking front office source from another organization texted that Kingsbury might not return, regardless of whether he lands another job first, end quote. Sure enough, he did not return. What is an accurate, objective, sober analysis of why the Commanders parted with Kliff Kingsbury?
I was debating with a couple people after he was after they moved on from him about, did he get fired or did he get fired in air quotes? And the difference, the black and white versions, yeah, obviously they, whatever the partial or whatever the mutual agreement was, I mean, they he's not firing them. So if they don't want him back, he's not back. But I think with Kliff he's not a normal coordinator, as we see by the fact that he's getting interviews, that he has a somewhat larger than life presence, and I imagine because of that, I don't think Kliff was easily swayed. So, I think we all saw it, right? And again, there's no blaming him for what happened this year in the sense that you can't, he's not picking the roster. All the injuries to not just Jaden Daniels, but to the receiving core. You lose Austin Eckler. There's a lot going on there. But I just feel like even within that context, I don't know that the system evolved to the moment. There were times where you could tell Dan Quinn was like, hey, we got to run the ball more. And then maybe Kingsbury would do that for a game or so. But eventually we kind of go back to where it was with his, up-tempo, no-huddle kind of a thing. Or maybe up-tempo is a bit strong, but, the no-huddle shotgun situation. And when you're starting to have, Chris Moore in there and you're on your backup quarterback and, you got random running backs and you lose Zach Ertz and all that stuff, you're like, man, what are we doing here? For me, I felt like that Minnesota game, I think we all remember what was going on there with the opening drive. Chris Rodriguez runs the ball all the way down to the 2, second and goal, and then they throw 3 passes in a row. Debo could have caught one for a touchdown, but that was like, wow, what are we doing here? Even the fact that trick play to Brandon Coleman, to me, it was like, wow, you guys got to score. This isn't last year. This is the first quarter you're already trailing. And again, I'm not saying that was a tipping point necessarily, but to me, that was the moment where I was like, okay, what are we doing here? Why is nobody else doing this offense? And I started asking questions in the press conferences to this effect of flat out asking both Kingsbury and Quinn, if this thing is so good, how come nobody else even comes close to replicating what you're doing? And so I just think ultimately Dan Quinn probably was just like, look, if I'm going to go out, this is probably the last chance I'll ever have to be a head coach. And if I'm going out, I want to go out my way. Now, of course, you could say, well, didn't you already know? Shouldn't you have known all this when Kingsbury came on board? I guess there's a difference between knowing the scheme and maybe knowing the person. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Kingsbury was like tough to deal with. I'm just saying he's got his own thoughts, and he's not necessarily someone that is going to be easily cowed because he'll get another job. Like Kingsbury's not going to be unemployed if he doesn't want to be. So I just ultimately think it was probably mostly just that, just sort of a different philosophical way of looking at the team. And when you talk about complementary football, which is a nauseating term to me, but because isn't that what the whole thing is? But when you harp on it as much as Dan Quinn, it feels like that's in his heart of hearts. I don't know that Kliff Kingsbury's offense ultimately worked with that notion, especially when the defense needs to stay off the field. All those things. I don't know that it worked out that way.
You just talked about the Commanders parting with Kliff Kingsbury as a decision of head coach Dan Quinn. General Manager Adam Peters on January 5th during his and Quinn's joint season-ending press conference strongly indicated that coaching staff decisions are Quinn's calls. Now, NFL insider Jordan Schultz, he on January 7th in a post on X said, quote, "I have not gotten the impression Dan Quinn wanted to move on from his coordinators," end quote. But both you and Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN have said that the decision to part with Kingsbury was primarily a Dan Quinn decision. So that was the case.
What I heard, what I was told was that the notion of Peters getting involved to a degree and having issues with Kingsbury was overstated. I also think when Peter says Dan Quinn, all the hires are on him, I don't know if I 100% buy that either. Look, you're a Moneyball guy. In the movie, at least, I don't know what the book was, but in the movie, at least, Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, is talking to the manager, Art Howe, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, and saying, look, this isn't going to work if you don't use the players that I brought in the way I want you to. And Art Howe couldn't see it, and then eventually he forces trades. So I always look at the Ben Sinnott move. Like, Ben Sinnott was told to us he's some sort of a Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle comp. And you're like, okay, it seems a little aggressive in the second round, but okay. But it's also never made sense for what Kingsbury is looking to do. And that's why, like, even after the fact, even after Zach Ertz goes down, it wasn't like Sinnott was like some highly targeted guy. And a part of that is Sinnott's got to continue developing. But it felt like to me that was an example of the GM sees one thing and the staff is using them another way. And if you're not in alignment, then it is not going to work, most likely. So maybe there's more examples of that, or maybe I'm overstating it. But to me, that would be, again, I'm going to stay with the philosophical aspect. I just don't have enough evidence to say they were yelling at each other and they were real issues in that regard. But to say that Adam Peters had no say, I think is probably overstating it.
You and Kliff Kingsbury had a number of notable interactions during his press conferences over his 2 seasons as Commanders' offensive coordinator. Something from Kingsbury during his pressers this season was him routinely bringing up that the style of offense that the team was playing was not the style of offense that he had anticipated the team playing. Here was an exchange that you had with Kingsbury on January 1st during his final press conference as Commanders' offensive coordinator.
Kliff, obviously, we discussed all along, but the injuries just, crushed momentum. But when you look back at choices that you made along the way, maybe whether play calling or how you view personnel, whatever, is there anything you look back on and think, okay, maybe missed the mark on something or something you could change if you could kind of do it again?
Yeah, I think when you go through these seasons, it's always best to start with yourself, point at yourself and then figure out what you could do better and then collectively what we could do better. But there's a ton of different decisions I wish we would have made and I would have made and more just like individual play calls than anything. Our style of play was a bit different, like I said, trying to slow the games down, limit possessions, do things of that nature. But yeah, there are a ton of things I wish I would have done better as far as scheme and maximizing players and things of that nature. But that's, an off-season kind of project when we do our self-scout, self-evaluations.
Okay, so interesting to hear that now, given what happened. I mean, Kliff Kingsbury saying, quote, "There's a ton of different decisions I wish we would have made and I would have made," end quote. He used the pronoun we, and then perhaps caught himself and used the pronoun I. That to me stood out. We, perhaps as in Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. But Kingsbury again brought up that the style of offense that the team was playing was not the style of offense that he had anticipated the team playing. And that certainly seemed to be about all of the injuries for the offense. But given the benefit of hindsight and given some of the other stuff that he said in that cut that I just played, I wonder if him saying that the style of offense that the team was playing was not the style of offense that he had anticipated the team playing, and him saying that over and over and over and over again during the course of the season was like a cry for help, a cry of, hey, I'm being forced to do offense in a way that I don't want to be doing offense.
2024 was unbelievable, right? I mean, everything worked. The offense was amazing. Wasn't just a Hail Mary. I mean, Jaden was lights out. The running game was effective enough with Robinson and Eckler. McLaurin was awesome. Noah Brown, when he played, was really good. Zach Ertz was a revelation in the red zone. Everything worked. And I imagine if everything had kept working, I don't know that Dan Quinn is going, hey, we gotta make some adjustments. But week 2, the injuries started to pile up. You lose Eckler. Jaden's out for a couple games. You lose Noah Brown. So now you've taken away the only other viable outside receiver that you have. And then McLaurin gets hurt the next week. And this is kind of where, I'm imagining that Dan Quinn was kind of like, hey, we can't keep doing the same thing. Now we're missing all this stuff. So if there was that philosophical nagging, perhaps, that Kingsbury felt, I kind of do understand it to an extent. That, again, people have heard me say this 100 times. I was fortunately raised on Joe Gibbs 1.0. And, again, we all know the story. He comes in with Air Coryell. They start 0-5. He's like, okay, let me look at this again. Okay, I got this running back. I got this offensive line. Looks good. Let me shift that way. We all know what happened from there. And then later in his career, when he has big arms and Mark Rippon and Doug Williams and those receivers, he changed it up a bit and threw it more down the field. That, to me, is what I want in a coach, somebody who is going to take their system and say, this is not everything. The system is my baseline, but it can't be everything for me at all times. And it just maybe felt like Kingsbury just couldn't get away with it. The one thing I've wondered is I feel so bad for Chris Moore, the person, because I've constantly harped on this all year. It's why when I got one chance to ask Adam Peters a question and I was kind of down the list, I'm like, the hell with this. I'm not going to blow this. I'm asking about what the hell is going on here. But the idea that Chris Moore, look, he started the year on the practice squad. He wasn't on the original 53, but then the injuries happened. They pulled him up. But the fact that he kept being there on the outside as the X receiver all year, he barely caught the ball. He had problems with drops. He wasn't getting open. What was the point? And I just kind of kept thinking, why is Adam Peters saddling them with this? But as the season went on, I kept thinking, well, wait a minute. Why is he out there because Kingsbury in his offense needs that X receiver and he doesn't view McCaffrey or Jalen Lane or whoever else as that guy, which he shouldn't? Was that the problem? Shouldn't he have gone with hey, how do I get 2 of these running backs on the field at the same time? Because the ground game is where we are thriving the best. Or I know they use some 12 personnel, but more Ertz and Bates, or maybe even, this year, 13 personnel was a bigger deal. Why was Chris Moore out there so much? If that was Kingsbury, I was frustrated, and I would be frustrated if I was those guys, because it just seemed completely ineffective.
And it was so telling that the Commanders during the regular season released Chris Moore, but then no other team picked him up, and so the Commanders brought him right back. And it was so telling that the Commanders during the regular season released receiver River Craycraft, but then no other team picked him up, and so the Commanders brought him right back. What does it say that these guys got released and no other team wanted them? Much more with Ben Standig in moments, but if you are a Commanders fan, check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders discussion. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is tremendous. A lot of smart and funny conversation. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. No politics, just football. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. We're talking with Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. I really hope that whenever the introductory press conference for David Blough as offensive coordinator happens, it includes Dan Quinn, because I'm looking forward to hearing him explain why the team parted with Kliff Kingsbury and what Quinn wants from the offense with Blough as OC. A truthful articulation from Quinn on what he wants from Blough would be what?
Yeah, look, obviously, keep the stuff in this current offense that Jaden Daniels likes, all that. But ultimately, I think the run game that Ben Johnson has with the Lions and now with the Bears is something that they want to incorporate. And obviously, Blough was with Johnson in Detroit, so that's kind of where that mindset comes. Of course, Peters, they both know the Shanahan system very well for different reasons. So, if you told me it was more in that vein, but ultimately having the run game be more featured is I think, the big difference here. So I would imagine, if somebody said to me, you can only go look at Kliff Kingsbury tape or Ben Johnson tape to get a feel for Blough, I probably would go with the Ben Johnson route. I mean, also partly because we already saw this one here, but I'd probably go down that route to see how they deployed Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and how that worked meshed with the receiving game. Obviously, they don't have Jahmyr Gibbs here, but again, what they do have is effective. And again, the people, if you just look at the raw rushing numbers last year, they were one of the better rushing teams in the league. But if you take away the quarterback rushes, they dropped down into the 20s. And it was all up and down, but I think it was also partly up and down because of the usage. It would tail off in the second half, often because they were getting blown out. But so yeah, I would imagine the Ben Johnson run game part of this, again, maybe the Shanahan to a degree, is where this would be where Dan Quinn wants to take this.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, myself included, hear and read about Dan Quinn wanting a more run-oriented offense and get concerned because that sounds antiquated. That sounds like the formula that was touted by Ron Rivera during his time as Washington head coach. But when you put what Quinn wants as being more along the lines of what, say, the San Francisco 49ers are doing, okay. I mean, that sounds much better. As we mentioned, the running game. We on Wednesday morning had reports that Commanders run game coordinator / running backs coach Anthony Lynn was to interview for the Buffalo Bills head coaching vacancy. So Lynn interviewing for the Bills head coaching job. This off the Commanders not interviewing Lynn for their offensive coordinator job. The Commanders reportedly interviewed 2 internal candidates beyond David Blough for the team's offensive coordinator vacancy, assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson and tight ends coach David Rye. The team reportedly did not interview Anthony Lynn. That was surprising given that Lynn has been both an NFL offensive coordinator and an NFL head coach. Do you know why the team did not interview Lynn?
Well, I mean, you talk about a modern approach. I mean, I'm not saying he's from the leather helmet days, but obviously he's an older coach, older coordinator. So maybe it just was like, hey, this is not where we want to go. To that point, I've been saying that with Blough here, they've got to bring in somebody can be the literal adult in the room, some former coordinator, somebody who has done all the things that an offensive coordinator does just to help. Again, this is how life works in all work environments. You know what I mean? You don't bring in somebody who's a hot shot and then say, go figure it out for yourself. You give him a mentor or so. No, that could be Brian Johnson if he stays. I wonder if that's going to happen because he got passed over. And Anthony Lynn is also there, and he could be that guy. But again, Anthony Lynn is the running backs coach. He's the running backs the run game coordinator. I don't know that is who they want to pair with Blough, or if that's who they'd wanted to have for that position. Obviously, it looks like they were pretty intent on going with Blough, so I don't know if it would have mattered, but I would imagine it was partly like, hey, in this era of football, we need more of that passing game mentality, and that's not where he is at. So, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? We're focusing on the defensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. There could be a lot more changes. Without question. I mean, again, the whole league is on hold until these jobs get filled. So who knows? Maybe Anthony Lynn has his sights set on doing something else, or maybe they were like, we're going to move on. Or like I said, we need him in that room to help with the run game, but he's not where we are for a modern approach.
Final question. Very little reporting on why the Commanders parted with Bobby Johnson. Why did they part with Bobby Johnson?
Nothing concrete. It initially, my thought was, okay, if they're going to make the move on Kliff, oftentimes the offensive coordinator wants to bring in an offensive line coach of their choice. So maybe they just decided, let's just move on now. Bobby Johnson has a very loud personality. He was like, a lot of the assistant coaches, when it comes to talking with us, you can tell they're kind of do it, not kicking and screaming, but they're not overly, they're excited to get off the podium. Bobby Johnson would give us chapter and verse of whatever he was thinking. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there was some personality incongruity that was going on. I mean, I think the offensive linemen, my sense is like some of those guys were were surprised. I think we all were in general, but yeah, I don't know the exact details, and not enough to speculate too much. But yeah, look, one of the criticisms I had heard with Bobby Johnson when he got hired was that, he's a good coach, but he's not great at developing players. Well, then this year we see Chris Paul come from, way in the bottom of the depth chart to starting 15 games and playing at a pretty good level. We see Josh Connerly improve over the course of the season. Now, we also saw Brandon Coleman get benched. So, it's hard to always tell what's the coaching and what's just the player or talent. So maybe there was something there that they felt they could have gotten more out of the group. I mean, the offensive line was good. I don't know. It was I think it was better than we were maybe saying they were a little bit better than what some of the ultimate numbers kind of showed, but they were good. So yeah, it was a surprise though.
All right. Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. Ben, always great to talk to you. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Pleasure, man. Thanks, Al.
All right. Hey, if you are planning a wedding or you know someone who is, check out or have that person check out cateringbyuptown.com. Catering by Uptown delivers not just delicious food of the highest quality, but also a flawless and memorable experience tailored to your special day. Catering by Uptown's team is dedicated to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. If you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Also, Catering by Uptown is great for parties, so whether a birthday, an anniversary, a retirement, or a charity gala, Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, the Washington Capitals now have lost at least 4 consecutive regular season games in regulation for the first time since naming Spencer Carberry as head coach on May 30th, 2023.
As the Canucks try to clear, and they do, toward the empty net, Marcus Pettersson. But it does not have enough, and the Capitals are out of time. 10 seconds left. Wilson coming near wing, and a puck back for Protas. They can't get out of their own zone, and as the puck comes to center ice for Strome, Ovechkin can't get it away. The Vancouver Canucks have won in regulation for the first time since December 6th at Rogers Arena. They beat the Caps 4-3.
John Walton on the Washington Capitals radio network early Thursday morning. Yeah, a 4-3 loss at the Vancouver Canucks late night on Wednesday night, and a new low point for the Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season, in which the Caps now are 24-21-6, including 7-12-4 over their last 23 games. The Canucks snapped an 11-game losing streak, and the Caps blew a 2-0 first period lead. This was a bad loss at a bad team. The Canucks for this regular season have an NHL worst 39 points. The Caps for this regular season have 54 points, tied with the New Jersey Devils for 5th place in the 8-team Metropolitan Division, but the Caps have played one more game than the Devils have played. And making this loss for the Caps even worse was that they got back arguably their MVP this season, winger Tom Wilson, and still lost. He returned from an 8-game absence caused by a lower body injury. The Caps on Wednesday afternoon announced having activated Wilson off injured reserve, which he had been on since January 9th. Also, the Caps on Wednesday afternoon announced having loaned winger Ivan Miroshnichenko to their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. So Wilson, in this loss at the Canucks late night on Wednesday night, served as the Caps' second-line right wing, had a primary assist. The Caps won the puck possession battle. They had 32 shots on goal to the Canucks' 25, and per natural stat trick had 44 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Canucks' 42, including 9 5-on-5 high danger shot attempts to the Canucks 8. The Caps starting goaltender was Logan Thompson. Not a good game for him. He stopped just 21 of the 25 shots on goal that he faced. The Caps lost despite a terrific night on special teams, 3 for 3 on the penalty kill and 2 for 3 on the power play. Caps third line center Dylan Strome scored 2 goals, giving him 13 goals in this regular season. He scored a power play goal 8:25 into the first period and scored an even strength goal 16:37 into the third period. Also, he had a primary assist for his 27th assist in this regular season, and he went 12-4 on faceoffs. Caps second line center Justin Sourdif, he scored a power play goal 9:43 into the first period for his 10th goal in this regular season. Also, he had a primary assist and went 8-6 on faceoffs. Caps top line left wing Alex Ovechkin had a secondary assist for his 23rd assist in this regular season and generated a game best 9 total shot attempts, though just 2 shots on goal. And Caps defenseman John Carlson had 2 secondary assists, giving him a team best 31 assists in this regular season. Also, Carlson had a game best tying 4 shots on goal. He did commit a second period cross-checking minor. Your Caps healthy scratches for this loss at the Canucks late night on Wednesday night were winger Sonny Milano and defenseman Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath. Here was Caps head coach Spencer Carberry during his post-game session with reporters early Thursday morning.
At the end of the day, we're just making too many big mistakes. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but that's just the reality of it. We're making massive mistakes, and it's throughout. That you just can't in this league. It's just too competitive. You just cannot give free goals, and that's what we're doing too much of.
Yeah, the Caps were 17-9-2, or just 7-12-4 since. The final exchange of Spencer Carberry's post-game session with reporters early Thursday morning was this exchange between Caps insider Mike Vogel of WashingtonCaps.com and Carberry.
You mentioned recently how you guys are running into angry teams. Is there any value in you guys turning the table, becoming that angry?
Wouldn't that be nice, folks? I mean, I thought they played well at times. You could tell they were... They're top guys. I felt like we're going tonight. You could feel it early in that hockey game. But, I mean, if there's ever a time where our urgency level, I mean, you look at our season is hanging in the balance here. Like, that's just a fact. I'm not sugarcoating and I'm not trying to overemphasize where we're at. The Eastern Conference and what's coming at the deadline and all the break and how quick the deadline comes after the break, you name it, everything is pointing to the fact that our season's hanging in the balance, and that's where we're going to have to dig in and give everything we possibly have and play like we're in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I hate using that in the regular season, and you never want to drum that up in January and say it's like a playoff game, but we are getting very, very close to teetering on. If we don't get results soon here, we're going to be in a huge hole.
Very true. During Tom Wilson's post-game session with reporters early Thursday morning, had this back and forth between Mike Vogel and Wilson.
I know you've been watching mostly the last few weeks, but what have you seen as far as the 5-on-5 game? It seemed like when you guys were rolling earlier, that was your bread and butter at both ends of the ice. It seems like it's slipped at both ends recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's a grueling schedule right now. It's tough. You're playing every other night. First of all, we got to defend better. That has nothing to do with the legs or energy. We're just giving them too many odd man rushes. We're giving them too many times where we lose coverage and the guy's all alone on LT. So I think we're going to have to look ourselves in the mirror, defend a little bit better, and then from there we'll worry about the offensive end once we get there. But just giving up too much, and if we're going to be giving up that, you better be getting a lot at the other end. So we'll start in our own end and build from there, and then hopefully we can transition to better offense.
How did you feel personally getting back out there?
Yeah, it was okay. I felt like I had good legs. A couple times it was a little sore, but that's hockey. You guys are playing through a lot in here. The effort's there, and got a day to rest up, and then tough back-to-back. So we'll dig in here and hopefully just get a win and start stringing them together.
Yeah, so the Caps for a good chunk of this season were bad on special teams, but great in 5-on-5 play. And we on the podcast talked about that so much, how the Caps were doing terribly on special teams, but were excelling in 5-on-5 play. And generally speaking, 5-on-5 play matters a lot more than special teams. Well, lately, special teams have been at least a bit better. Certainly were really good in this loss at the Canucks late night on Wednesday night. And the 5-on-5 play specific to this loss at the Canucks late night on Wednesday night was not bad, but overall, the 5-on-5 play lately has slipped, and that has been a problem. Here was John Carlson during his post-game session with reporters early Thursday morning.
Yeah, I just think it's I think we need to sustain a little bit more. I think there's a lot of too many, when things aren't really going our way, everyone wants to make the one pass to score, and I think there's we need a little bit more sustained ozone time. I think wearing teams down, kind of making it more tough on them to get out of their zone and change and kind of restart the process again. I think, we're seeing parts of it like we expect of us, but I think we can do it a lot more.
All right, next up for the Caps are games on back-to-back nights this weekend at the Calgary Flames Friday night at 9 and at the Edmonton Oilers Saturday night at 10. The best product for skincare is OneSkin. OneSkin formulas are powered by the OS1 peptide, a patented peptide built on longevity science proven to target aging at the cellular level. OneSkin supports the cellular repair that keeps your skin looking and feeling better as you get older. This is not about adding extra steps to your routine. This is about swapping in smarter ones. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, OneSkin is making it even easier to stay consistent with up to 30% off your first 3 subscription orders when you use the promo code GALDI at oneskin.co/Galdi. That's oneskin.co/Galdi and use the promo code Galdi. oneskin.co/Galdi, up to 30% off with the promo code Galdi. And after your purchase, you'll be asked where you heard about OneSkin. Please support our show and say that Al Galdi sent you. And let's talk college basketball. Maryland and Georgetown, each team in the 2025-2026 regular season now is 1-7 in conference play. Maryland in this regular season fell to 8-11 overall, including 1-7 in the Big Ten with an 89-70 loss at number 11 Illinois on Wednesday night. Maryland does remain without its best player, 6'9" Texas A&M transfer Pharrell Payne. He did not play for an 8th consecutive game due to a right knee injury. Maryland in the first half held a 5-point lead at 24-19. The Terrapins then lost the rest of the game 70-46. Maryland's defense was not good. The Terps allowed Illinois to score 89 points, go 15 for 40 on threes and 12 for 22 on twos, and have 17 assists versus just 7 turnovers. And the final score could have been worse. Illinois went just 20 for 28 on free throws. Also, the Terps got worked by 6'7" Cal transfer Andrei Stojakovic of Greece, the son of former NBA star Peja Stojakovic. Andrei Stojakovic, in 33 minutes as a starter, had 30 points, 9 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards and 2 blocks. He went 4 for 7 on threes, just 5 for 11 on twos, but 8 for 8 on free throws. And Maryland's shooting was really bad. The Terps went just 10 for 32 on threes, just 16 for 33 on twos, and just 8 for 16 on free throws. Just not enough offensive firepower for Maryland with Pharrell Payne out. Maryland got out-rebounded by Illinois 47-31. Maryland's leading scorer was 6'4" Texas A&M transfer Andre Mills. He, in 17 minutes off the bench, had 16 points, went 4 for 5 on threes, 2 for 4 on twos, and 0 for 1 on free throws. Next up for Maryland, at number 10 Michigan State, Saturday at noon. Georgetown It in this regular season fell to 9-10 overall, including 1-7 in the Big East, with a 66-51 loss at Villanova on Wednesday night. Georgetown lost its sixth consecutive game. The Hoyas late in the first half held a 1-point lead at 23-22. They then lost the rest of the game 44-28. The story of this game for Georgetown was its offense, which was really bad. The Hoyas scored just 51 points, went just 8 for 25 on threes, just 9 for 25 on twos, and just 9 for 14 on free throws, and committed 17 turnovers. A really rough game for one of the Hoyas' best players, 6'2" Malik Mack. He, in 29 minutes as a starter, went just 1 for 14 from the field, 1 for 9 on threes, 0 for 5 on twos. Georgetown's defense was good. The Hoyas held Villanova to just 7 for 22 on threes and just 17 for 37 on twos. But yeah, another loss for the Hoyas. Next up for Georgetown at Providence, Saturday afternoon at 12:30. So Maryland and Georgetown on Wednesday night lost on the road, but Virginia Tech on Wednesday night won on the road. The Hokies in this regular season improved to 15-5 overall, including 4-3 in the ACC, with a 76-74 win at Syracuse on Wednesday night. Tech overcame a 10-point first-half deficit, led by 9 points late in the second half. Had to hold on for what ended up being a 2-point win, but the Hokies did win. Tech's defense was mostly good. The Hokies allowed Syracuse to go 10 for 23 on threes, but held Syracuse to just 16 for 38 on twos, and totaled 9 steals in generating 14 Syracuse turnovers. Tech's offense was mixed. The Hokies went 19 for 34 on twos, but just 4 for 17 on threes, and just 26 for 36 on free throws, though the Hokies had 36 free throw attempts to Syracuse's 14 and 26 free throw points to Syracuse's 12. 40 of Tech's 76 points came from just two guys, Ben Hammond and Toby Lowell. Tech's leading scorer was 5'11" Ben Hammond, who had some game. He, in 36 minutes, 56 seconds as a starter, had 24 points, 6 steals, 4 rebounds, 4 assists versus 2 turnovers, and a team best plus-minus rating of +7. He went 2 for 4 on threes, 3 for 6 on twos, and 12 for 13 on free throws. 6'8" Toby Lowell, he in 30-11 off the bench, had 16 points, 11 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 2 blocks, and no assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 3 for 6 from the field, all twos, and 10 for 14 on free throws. And Tech won despite remaining without a key player in 6'5" Tyler Johnson. He did not play for a 7th consecutive game due to a left ankle injury. Next up for Virginia Tech, at number 23 Louisville, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday's show, episode 1245. We'll have much more on the Washington Commanders. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk Washington Wizards. The Wizards are home to the Denver Nuggets Thursday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
There's a ton of different decisions I wish we would have made and I would have made, and more just like individual play calls than anything. You know, our style of play was a bit different, like I said, trying to slow the games down, limit possessions, do things of that nature. But yeah, there are a ton of things I wish I would have done better as far as scheme and maximizing players and things of that nature. But that's, you know, an off-season kind of project when we do our self-scouts, self-evaluations.